Alright then, how to hold a sword. Very weird things. I don't know. A trope in media. She didn't even know how to hold a sword. He wasn't holding a sword right. Really weird trope, and I think it's because the writers actually don't understand swords. Swords are ridiculously easy to hold. It's a very natural human thing. Of you see a stick, you grab the handle, and you're holding a sword right. I don't know what these authors are thinking in their trope. Is the person holding the sword by their pommel, holding it by the cross guard. Best not be holding it like this. Maybe they're holding it reverse grip. That is the most charitable I can give them. Good old absolutely no angle of which to hold the sword with. The sword's a relatively simple thing to hold. It gets slightly more complicated when it comes to two-handed swords and kendo swords. Kendo swords actually, you have to have this little thing pointed in your direction, and there's leverage when it's a two-handed sword, and so you want to hold about space. Some people say space here, 2 fingers or 1 fingers. Actually really doesn't matter. And then good space here and enough space in between the hands. No, you want maximum leverage. So maximum leverage for a swing. Again, really simple. Now, knife. It's not a sword. But you naturally know how to hold a knife when you're given a knife. I mean, I've actually stand corrected on that. I've seen someone try to cut a cake like this, which is absurdity. This is not a double-sided blade, though. So maybe they're holding the sword like this, and they're trying to get you with the serrated bit on the bottle opener. Can opener, whatever. That's a possibility. And again, holding swords can have some more nuance with the katana. Again, you want to make sure this part isn't facing your enemy, otherwise you're going to break it, so maybe that's part, but someone can figure that out really easily. Put the sharp side towards the person you want to hit while hitting your sword. And now functionally there might be some special way to hold the sword, and you don't want to hold it so your grip's weird like this. You want to have it so your grip's like this. This is an odd grip. But your grip can shift while you're holding a sword. I've done a lot of sword fighting with actual swords. These are mostly ornamental or one practice sword, but I've done a lot of fighting and your grip changes. You can hold it like this and turn a swing so it goes into one hand. Then you can recover, or you can do a swing like that. You can even hold the sheath while fighting and use that to punch someone or to block as a shield because it's along your arm. You can also use this as a catch. A little bit more nuance to how to hold katana. It might be a better way to put it, instead of holding it, is they didn't know how to stand with a sword.
Or yet another option is the person is so bad that they're being insulted by their trainer or by the person by saying they don't even know how to hold a sword. That could be the case.
Now, to give the benefit of the doubt to most authors, it would be to assume that when they're talking about how to hold a sword, what they're actually referring to is stance. So giving them that benefit of doubt, let's talk about stances. Now, stances are how you hold yourself while you hold a sword. Such as presenting forwards a guard with your blade, or a more extended guard. Now, there are lots of different guards for many different weapons, many different cultures and styles of combat and martial arts. Even within the same area with the same weapon, there can be different preferred stances or guards that are used. Now, what is a guard then? A guard is two things, both rather simple. The first thing a guard is a starting point for you to attack and defend with. If an opponent were to strike at you and you have a basic guard in front of you, your blade's ready to block their attacks. And you can also attack from here, making it so you can strike while defending yourself. Bunch of different kinds of guards. This here is a mid guard, having the sword in front of you at a middle length. Probably one of my favorite guards, and one of the more useful. There is also high guards, such as holding the blade above your head. There are low guards, holding the blade in front of you. There is useless guards, holding the blade sideways. There is side guards, holding the blade ready to either side. And there's a bunch of variations on these different guards, such as the stupid guard. There's also the notorious holding the blade like so, or like so, and probably a few other you could think of which aren't the brightest. Now, the other thing that guards are, they are a psychological meta-duel going on before you actually do any fighting. Now, what does that mean? I can't exactly put it right, but having a guard like this tells your opponent that this person favors a basic stance. Now, with my footworks, I like to have my feet a lot more forward than most people would recommend as well. So that tells you I might be a bad fighter or I favor my foot if you look too much into it, but basically tells you I'm straightforward in defending myself. Now, a guard such as a high guard called the Wrath Guard, which is when you have the sword like this tells your opponent that you're a maniac intending to kill them, and you're going to sacrifice defense of all these areas to start with a heavy strike. This low defense tells them that you're leaving yourself open and you're confident, as this is considered a rather bad guard. Bad defense gives you not as many options. However, this guard is also excellent at stabbing, and it's a trickster's guard, sometimes called the fool's guard, of holding your blade down low, launching up into a stab, or flicking at the feet, and it can defend you from people attacking low, but it takes a long time for you to bring your blade up and deflect incoming attacks. Now, the psychological thing is also very complicated. Like, you're in a guard, then you can shift guards. Although this takes time, but as a part of it, moving between them, but people generally favor guards to hold them, as I favor a very basic guard and a mid guard, although I'm also quite a fan of the low guard. Now, katana has another guard, which is quite commonly seen in both Japanese swordsmanship and the longsword, which is I'm trained in, which is a guard like this. This is actually a stabbing guard, but it's also very good for defense and quick cutting. So that's how you hold yourself when holding a longsword, two-handed sword, and the idea behind it is holding it in a ready guard so you can block and attack, and also the psychological game. And that is what I could be talking about and terribly talking about when they say they can't hold a sword, is the person is holding a two-handed sword such as this, like this, dueling stance. Or they're wielding a short sword, two-handedly, gladius especially, in front of themselves as a way to attack like this, which, while can be done, is not the purpose of a gladius. Gladius are mainly shield swords. You want a bigger shield and therefore stabbing. They're actually more of a machine tool than a weapon, where you advance and you stab or chop from behind a large shield, or place over and stab designed for being close to your opponents, so you walk right to them, you can attack with. So holding a gladius, such as this, is you want it tied in for very nasty fighting, which is what most battlefields have when using swords. Equivalent, this Chinese Tai Chi sword, how you would hold it, or more accurately, the guards and stands you'd have for yourself, is it actually really favors a low guard because it's a stabbing weapon. And so quick cuts, slashing up, and striking with it is preferred. So someone could be wielding Tai Chi sword. They could be trying to use it like the gladius, using this as their shield and trying short stabs and in close fighting, where it's not designed for in close fighting. It's designed, especially this one, for training, but if it's the real sword, for duels and one-on-one fighting, where the gladius and the katana to a certain extent are for more group fights. But this is very much a dueling weapon of slashing, stabbing, and cutting people without much armor, and you want to hold it in certain guards. I'm not as familiar, but a low guard or guards such as this, which you see in Mulan, which is close to the eyes, and hand can be holding something or not. But this guard is because you're actually fighting with your hands, which is terrifying. So move and stabs from here, so you can actually brace, and that's why we have this. Is someone's sword is coming in, and we knock it inside this part here, and we stab at the same time, and fluid motions. And so, not holding a sword right, I'd either say they have no idea what they're talking about, or they should replace that with they have no idea how to use a sword. But they want to imply to a certain extent that this person is so incompetent, they don't actually know how to hold a sword. And so they're holding it like a complete idiot. Whereas I think that's ridiculous, because anyone can hold a sword. It's got a handle. Humans know to use tools and handles. What they wouldn't know is how to stand with it. So I'm leaned forwards, and have a very wide stance, that's not so good. If I'm leaned back, most commonly, that's not a very good stance. My feet together, or like this. I'm not holding myself in a very good position. I'm holding the sword just fine, but I'm not holding myself all that great. From here, I can go into things. But to start with, this is great, and people can take a lot of advantage of this. Equivalent, if I'm like this, that's not a very good stance either. Could use this as a dueling weapon, and starting out high, keeping my balance, although I don't actually like the dueling stance of holding your hand out, as this is a useful tool. It should either be holding the grip or extra tool for the fight. So I could be like this, so then I can blindside you by bringing the hilt around. All part of the stance. Finally, I want to address the reverse grip, where that comes from. So there's a guard that I didn't talk about, which is called the teacher's guard. And that is actually a reverse grip guard. However, the teacher's guard is like this. It's not out to the side, it's not holding like this, or God forbid this, or trying to fight like Rey in The Last Jedi. And the teacher's guard is like this. And the teacher's guard is designed so you can't really attack from it. That's just because the way humans work physiologically, you don't have a lot of great motion. What it's used for is if you have a little runt you're trying to teach, who's a lot shorter than you, they're going to attack your legs a lot. Now, blocking from down here is all well and good, but over time you lose advantage, and most opponents are the same height as you, and changing directions from leg to leg is rather takes time. But a little kid with their sword down here will be going like that to your legs. So the teacher's guard, blocking, and you don't need much strength, so you can block with the reverse grip. And teacher will use, and it's like, oh, the master holding your sword in reverse might be good. No, he's doing this to block a kid from hitting his legs and to teach them. And then you can also block up high very quickly. So if you're more advanced student, they're swinging at you. This guard is great for defense. It is in fact a shield. It can basically cover your whole body, blocking all directions. That is in fact why I hold the sheath of the Chinese sword in a reverse grip. They didn't really have shields as much for the fighters with these swords in the duels, but you still wanted something in this hand. So you'd have this as your shield. And then you could also quickly attack with it, but these attacks weren't as common. There's a lot of different variation. You'd also just punch with them that you'd have. And so as a reverse grip and a forward grip, that's because this was your shield. Someone swings at you and you block, swings at you and you block. But it's not practical for offense, with one exception. And that is the reverse grip on a knife. And this is actually a way to hold a knife. And it's not for the stabbing like that, because this is a lot more motion than this. Like, all I can really do is that with this when attacking at front, whereas this is very quick movements that are quite dangerous and can be quite deliberate of cuts and slashes. But what this does is, if you're in a knife fight or wielding a knife, which is insanity because fighting with a knife is terrifying, then fighting someone and you've got extended grip and you want to keep as far away as you can from the person, especially if you just have one knife and they have a knife, and so you're cutting. What this does is it changes the playing field, because now they're not dealing with the blade being here, they're dealing with it being down here. And so if you're fighting them, you get their measure. Might even have a different weapon. And so you flip, you got your blade like this, and then cross. And you can punch with this as well. So this, got your fists up, you can punch straight across. And so you change up the rules and cut across, up, down, or you're moving past them.
It's a quick way to fight. Now, a thing I forgot to mention is this also allows you to put your center of weight into the knight. So because your chest is over the knight, it allows you to have the extra force of putting your other hand on the hilt, and then you can put a real big stab into it. Or even just holding one hand, because it's at your chest, it's at the center of your weight, and so you can put a lot of weight into stabs like that. The sword is too long for that to be really effective unless you're striking straight down.
And if you have two knives, which, sake of argument, my dirty kitchen knife and this one, you turn this into a reverse grip, you have this like this. Again, we have the shield. Sort of. Very good movement, good for blocking. Also, we can do that with it. That's where the reverse grip's coming from. But with the knife, it's mostly for deception or change things up. Or if you have two, a shield, and you don't have both of them upside down, attacking them with ice picks or something. And with the sword, you adopt the reverse grip to defend an absolute idiot. Now this grip is to dishonor your opponent. And if you can beat them like this, then they are truly bad with the sword, and you've achieved something far above them. So how do you hold a sword then? Because that's a question. How to hold a sword? Well, you hold it with your hands in the way that the handle would suggest. Make sure the blade is facing towards them with the pointy bit. Hold it with the appropriate amount of hands that the space gives you. If it's a hand and a half, well, that's something completely different, and that's a lot more advanced. And hand and half swords are generally not used all that oftenly anyways. So ignore that, and don't hold your weapon like this. And that's how to hold a sword, and to hold yourself, do what feels natural and comfortable, and then ask for training on that, because that's a little more advanced. But the basic is get the blade in between you and the person, and that's about all you need to do. In fact, the most basic to a sword, and how you use it, is point the pointy bit what you don't like, move the pointy bit into them, and you have it dealt with. Okay, maybe a bit of whiskey. Milady. Sword sheathing. And hopefully now, you know how to hold a sword. And if you don't, well then, it's not too much of a problem because swords aren't all that common. But now you too can also be a little annoyed whenever you're reading a book or watching a film and the person says they don't even know how to hold a sword. Because it's ridiculous. Anyone can know how to hold a sword. Maybe that's their point. But then they show them how to hold the sword and that's just, yeah. It's an insult, basically. It's an insult. It's not actually a level of confidence. Like, they don't even know how to hold their sword. Oh no, we need to teach them how to hold their swords. No, that's not how you use it. They don't know how to hold a sword. They're an idiot. That's how you use it. So yes. Anyways, enough of this rant. Went on far longer than I thought it would.